Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'd like to welcome everybody to Arctic Kingdoms, the Great Polar Bear Migration webinar. My name is Brad Miron, and I'm going to be walking you through the webinar, and I'll be your moderator today. We're going to hear for some great people on this webinar. And the people on the webinar will be Graham Dixon, the founder of Arctic Kingdom. Also, Dave Briggs, our polar bear expert and senior leader. He'll walk you through what the whole experience is all about. And you're also going to hear from Dave Lambert, who is our director of sales, and who will share with you a little bit of insights of how to book this great trip. And we'll also have a Q&A session for all the questions that are coming through. There's a little chat button down in the right-hand corner of your screen. And as the webinar goes, please send those questions in. We will see them, myself and the group will see them. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A session so we can ask the expert and get all kinds of information about that. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Graham Dixon, who is the visionary of Arctic Kingdom, as well as has been recognized as a pioneer of Arctic tourism by the Nunavut government. So take it away, Graham.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks again for joining us today to learn about our amazing fly-in polar bear safaris. It's my pleasure to introduce Dave Briggs. Dave is a bear whisperer, an adventurer, very hard worker, an amazing photographer, and has well over a decade in all polar seasons, working from bears first coming out of their dens through our bears and icebergs onto the floe edge with whales of all sorts and polar bears, and through the summer and fall season now to discuss with you all and to share more about what makes the fall one of the very best seasons for bears. Take it away, Dave.
Hey Graham, thanks for the introduction, and I'm very glad to be here and looking forward to chatting with everyone. What makes this trip very, very special and my favorite of the Arctic Kingdom trips is that we have bears on their own terms. The bears are coming towards us. We're not heading out towards them, and so what you do when that happens, you get a very natural experience. You get ones where bears are doing what they do in their daily life. So they can be approaching, and they're looking inquisitive, and they're checking things out, and as they would in any situation. So that's first of all what makes it special. The other one is that they come towards us and get very close. So they are drawn in because they're curious animals. They are also intrigued by the smells of the area, and so they come towards us, and we have the luxury of actually getting to a point where they're coming in, and we actually stop them at some point so that they don't come in too close. And that's what actually really makes it special. Then it gets really interesting, because then you get to see the dynamic between the polar bears and us, and them, and you can actually see as they are confronted with different situations, how they react, and how their thinking process behind it. Yeah, that's again one of the joys of this trip over many others, is that we are in a position where we can get down low and take pictures looking up at a polar bear. There's nothing that makes an animal more grand, and the true spirit of the animal comes forward is when there's either same eye level or looking up slightly. When you're looking down on animals, it makes them seem smaller, it makes them seem subordinate, and so they become very grand and the dominant animals that they are. So and that experience, there's nothing like it. You can see it in the photographs, and how special it is. And it can seem, I've shown pictures of the animals when in this position, and you'll get, wow, you're so close, and that must be scary, and that's the sort of reaction we want. Like, I mean, that's spectacular, that's beautiful, that's you're so close, and what it is we've got this relationship with the bear where they're comfortable with us, and they go about their business, and they then will stay in an area and allow us to take these pictures, and it's a pretty special experience. Information that we provide guests at the beginning is we don't want them to go, wow, there's a big bear, or whatever, here it comes, and stuff like that. We're all very quiet, subdued, no movements, just letting the bear come forward, let it get used to us, and because we want that experience for it to come, we don't want to scare them away. So but when all that experience is done and we've had a great encounter, a great viewing, then it's just like their eyes become very big and their mouths drop and they're just like high-fiving, and just like that was the most amazing thing I've ever had, and some actually go to tears. It's so emotional and stuff, because it can be for some people. It's quite an amazing experience. And yeah, so the polar bear cabins are located on the shores of Hudson Bay, on the western shores, and it's an area where the polar bears are coming up naturally up the coastline, and they're on what they call the polar bear migration, and that is really just a way of saying that the polar bears are working their way up. There's not just one, two, whatever. There's a whole number of polar bears that are using this route up the coastline, and that's what they do. They're following the coastline, and because it's close to their food source, they are opportunistic. So as they're working their way up, as the ice is freezing, because they're trying to get to frozen ice or frozen seawater, so that they can get on the ice, so they can, where they're most adept at getting their prey. So they're working their way up, and if there's opportunity along the way, they'll get something. But we're in a great place where the ice is yet to be frozen, so they're continuing to work their way up and looking for those platforms. And so as they work their way up, they come right by our cabins and on their way to their hunting grounds. Now, the joy of these cabins is they're just situated on the Hudson Bay in the middle of nowhere. That's another comment we get is how remote people feel, and they just feel a connection to the land because there's nothing else around, and the only thing separating us, between us and the bears, is this little fence, and even then we go out and into the land and experience the land firsthand. There are only 8 guests on this on departure, and that is a really unique opportunity in itself, to be able to be in a small group situation like that. I don't think I need to speak too much about that, because I think we all know that the less people that are on the trip, the better the experience, because you're not all vying for the same position or same location, or that you're tripping over people to do something. It's very intimate. You get to know the people very well. We get to spend the time more with people and provide that one-on-one experience that is so important, just from a standpoint of getting to know people, for telling people about the experience, to impart our knowledge, both mine, my Inuit guides, and even the chef, anyone involved. There's with so few people, we get to tailor it to the wants and needs of each individual group. So if we got people that are really keen on going out for a long hike from the cabins, we can do that. If we want people to hang around and just chill, we can do that. So it offers us a lot of flexibility in organizing the trip. But I think first and foremost is that we can work one-on-one with each person to make sure that they have the best experience, and that they can have the opportunity to position themselves anywhere they want to get the best shots. Yeah, so as a photographer, this offers one of the premier experiences. There are, I'm trying to think now where other opportunities there are to get bears this close and at an angle, meaning where you can get down low and get these upward shooting pictures of bears as they're approaching. And as they're, not when they're approaching, we have techniques that we've employed over many years and learned, where we can have a bear that we keep it about 30 feet away. That's a comfortable distance for us, and it's a comfortable distance for them. And they get so relaxed, they'll lie down and get very comfortable. And at that point, we can get all sorts of different angles of a bear. And it's like I say, there's no other experience that I've been exposed to that gives that opportunity with a polar bear. And not only that, it's over. When they're comfortable like that, you've got lots of time. You'll run out of battery power for the bear. Sometimes it's not just like a one-shot wonder, and God, did I get that? Or it's you wonder, oh, did I ever get that picture? Because you've had lots of opportunity to frame it the way you like. So one of the surprises that we have, actually I'll tell of a couple of surprises that people have on this trip. One of them is they've come for the bears. Everyone comes for the bears, but they leave with an experience beyond the bears, which I think surprises a lot of people. And that's they're with a small group of people and with our Inuit guides, and they can get an insight into the lives of the Inuit by being in this close association, and just the stories that they tell, and they leave with this much greater knowledge and understanding about these people, which they may not have had any appreciation for, and like I said, they didn't have any really understanding of. And once you have this connection, you find this bond and connection with the Inuit and their way of life, it really does move people, and I think that's something that is an added bonus that a lot of people don't expect. Another one is foxes. If we have foxes, they can come sometimes steal the show. Love foxes, and I can only cross my fingers. We've had years where they're just all over the place. Doesn't happen all the time, but when we have foxes, they're amazing animal to have, and a joy. They can curl up in front of a cabin. We've had that at times before. One of my most memorable pictures of a fox is actually looking out of the lounge. The lounge window opens, and I've got a picture of looking down with my iPhone at a fox, literally a couple of feet away, and it's just sort of sitting there underneath the window, just hanging out. And actually, speaking of which, was an experience which was actually picked up by National Geographic, an experience I had with a fox. And what had happened there was one of our guests wanted to get outside the fence and just sort of hang out. And again, this is one of the joys of being with 8 people, and one person says, hey, I'd like to get outside the fence and just sort of take some pictures of the kelp and the snow drifts or whatever it was. There wasn't anything happening per se, right? But we went out there, and I didn't even take my camera. I just had my iPhone, and they're out taking pictures and stuff. And then I just sit down in a bank, and a couple foxes are around, and this person's taking a picture of a fox and doing their thing, and then I'm sitting there, and another fox comes up, and I'm like, oh, I don't have my camera, but I did have my phone, so I take it out, and I'm sort of just following the fox, and it came towards me, it sniffed my feet, came up beside me, and did a big stretch and all the rest. Anyway, it was an amazing experience, an amazing encounter, and one that'll always stick with me as one of the best things. And you can see it on YouTube. There are a number of different animals that inhabit the Arctic and the area that we're in. The abundance, there's never, that's the thing about Canadian wildlife or the Arctic wildlife, is abundancy. We've got lots of species, but abundance is, or density, I guess would be a better word, is the density. They're spread out over large areas. So we get a lot, but they're hard to find, and they can be difficult to see. And that's why going on this trip can be very important too, because we have got guides that can just see from here to the horizon, spotting the wildlife. I've picked up my game as far as finding the Arctic hare and the fox as well. So when we go out on these hikes, there is opportunity to see animals such as the Arctic fox, the Arctic hare, ptarmigan. We sometimes get visitors. The pine marten, believe it or not, is I wouldn't say a frequent visitor, but they visit the camp on occasion. Then we've had on occasion is the marten. I mean, not marten. Wolverine. Wolverine, quite a rare sighting, but we have had wolverine. We do get the snowy owls on occasion. Caribou earlier in the season, we might get the caribou sighting. Let's see, lemming, the very hotly sought after lemming. We'll get on occasion. Actually, there was a great encounter we had once where we had the polar bear, and the polar bear was sort of working its way through the kelp and sort of eating all these little things, and we're never quite sure what they're eating in the kelp. But then I was rooting around in there, and all of a sudden this thing popped out and jumped, and the polar bear jumped, and someone actually got it on there, did a quick burst of photos, and they got actually a lemming. The bear had actually dug out and found a lemming and got it and was immediately full because those lemmings are so filling. We have the opportunity to go out and hikes. Everyone, we don't want to get cabin fever, as they say. A lot of the trip is hanging out and waiting for the polar bears, because that's what we're wanting to do. We want them to come towards us and have that natural experience. But there are times when we'll go out for hikes. It's tailor-made for the group itself and what their needs and wants are, which is a real bonus. But we do get out for these hikes, and along those hikes we can see evidence of bears. We see their paw prints along the way. We can sort of track them where they've been and learn a little bit what they did as they were traveling through. There's areas where they dig a little day den, or a little area that they're rest for the night, and you can see it all imprinted in the snow and kelp. So it gives us an opportunity to really experience the bear even when they're not there. Same goes for the Arctic hare and the Arctic fox. We're seeing tracks all along the place, and sometimes we can track those a little ways. We're tracking, for instance, the fox or the hare. We can see recent tracks, and we can sometimes narrow in on them. So it provides a sort of live experience, which snow does, which is wonderful too. Sometimes if you're in an area where there's no snow, there's animals can be there and you never see them. But here, hey, it's like fishing. You got one in the water. That they're out there. But we also have the opportunity for some amazing aurora. We are in a beautiful place, incredibly dark. And you can get a dome of the aurora over top of you, where it's just showering down, and it's one of those. I'm having a hard time sort of explaining it, because it's when you see it, you're so enthralled as this whole dome comes down over top of you. That's just one of them. There's this one where there's all sorts of sheets that are moving sheets. There are ones that move very quickly, some that are more subtle, so different colors. So you can get all sorts of different experiences there as far as the aurora, and it's quite amazing. So that's a shot that I've been looking for and wanting myself. I don't think I'll ever get it, because I'm one of the people managing it, and so that someone can get it. But it is possible. You've got to have a lot of things align for that to happen. You obviously have to have a strong aurora. You have to have a bear that is situated, obviously, in front of that aurora, that is also not moving, or for it best to work out, where it's sort of settled and just sort of hanging out, and we can put a light on it and basically paint in that bear. So you've got the aurora happening. What we do is the aurora is happening, which is a long shot, right? So again, that's why if it's a very strong aurora, you can have a shorter time frame. So, but say you've got a 6-second exposure, the bear's got to stay not moving at all for that 6 seconds, and then we just blast it with a little light, and the bear showing up in the picture with the aurora in the background. So it is possible, but it's a lot of things have to align. So come on the trip and be the first one to get it for us, because I'll just be so happy for you. Yeah, so with Arctic Kingdom, we respect the bears, and we respect the communities the bears can go by. As they're traveling north, they go through Churchill, and then they work their way up north, and the next one north of us is Hartfiat. And so any encounter, the bears are very smart, and they learn very quickly, and they adapt and change, which is all great things. But that goes for viewing as well. So when they come, we don't want to impact them. We try to minimize the impact that we have, and so we have an encounter with a bear, but we don't want it to get accustomed to this interaction, this close interaction with us over a long period of time. So if the bears come here, we had good viewing with it. At some point, we might have to give a little push along the way, like to get it moving, deter it, so it continues north and doesn't get accustomed to being around us for days. And a lot of times the bears are around for whatever length they want to be, because that's what they do. They're just doing their natural thing. But and quite often they'll just move off on their own. But there are occasions where we have decided that we want to move it off, because those bears are going to move on to another community, and we don't want their experience with us, that they can come up to anyone and it's all good and nothing's going to happen. That's both dangerous for the bear, because if it gets too close to people and hangs around people, then in other communities they're gonna pay the price for that, and they'll be put down for that. The other thing is we don't want them to get used to being around humans and actually see us as food or an opportunity either. So they've got to respect us as much as we respect them. Yeah, so safety is very important in any of our viewing opportunities. And in this one, we have 2 Inuit guides with rifles. And we position people. This has all gone over in great detail when people arrive. Maybe I'll just start with a little bit about safety as far as when you arrive, because we never know when a polar bear will arrive. So shortly after people arrive, as soon as we're a little comfortable, we get into an orientation, and we go through the whole viewing experience with the guests as if there was a polar bear there, and we're explaining the habits and tendencies of the bears. We get them out on the where we view them, and we go through the experience, and so that you're thoroughly familiar with what to expect as a bear approaches. And one of those things is the positioning of people. And we have our guides, 2 Inuit guides, one on either side of our group, and they have rifles. And they're our last circumstance. If a polar bear was attacking and it was a life-threatening situation, we have rifles to take care of that situation. Never have had to go not even close to that situation of a charging bear. One of the safety features is electric fence. It's a thin strands of wire. We have 9 strands of wire positioned about 6 inches apart, and they provide 18,000 volts of charge. It gives a good zap. You don't want to get zapped yourself. It's not going to be life-threatening for either you or the bears, but it does give a good wake-up call. And so that is one of our levels of defense. It's not only the voltage, but I mean, it's just a physical barrier. It's something that they, before that they've even know anything about it, or they don't know whether it has a charge or not a charge. They have nothing. They know nothing of the fence, and they'll just casually go up to the fence, and so it's just the sheer presence of the fence that provides a safety, just in the sense that they're not coming straight into us, right? Okay, with regard to food, like we have some of the best chefs. Literally, we get amazing chefs and amazing food. But you're going to get food that is also local flavor. You're going to get things like Arctic char. You're going to get things like caribou. You could get things like muskox. You could get, geese. These are the sort of flavors that we're getting. We're getting a real taste of the north. And what's even more special is our Inuit guides are quite often the people that have hunted these animals, like literally within a week or 2 weeks or whatever, depending on the season of when they're getting them. But it adds that whole connection, and they can tell you the whole story behind that. All right. Yeah. So we have three cabins at the three guest cabins at the camp. Two of those cabins will accommodate 2 people each. So that's 4 people. And then we have one cabin which is like a semi-detached. It's got a wall down the middle and 2 people on either side. It's perfect for a family or friends, but it's also private enough for people that don't know each other as well. These are set up with on-demand water, hot water, and they're very comfortable. I kid you not, the comment I get from the more anyone who talks about the cabins when they've actually been there, they say, I can't believe how well I'm sleeping, that they're so comfortable. And to me it's almost a bit surprising because they're rustic, but people love them, and they're comfortable, rustic but comfortable. And I think that describes them. And we have people that are literally on 5-star, all they do is 5-star stuff, and they're enjoying it. So I think we've hit the mark as far as being comfortable. We've got an area for people to hang out in a lounge, and kitchen, which is very close to that. And we, again, equally comfortable, where people can hang out and chat. We have in the afternoons, we'll have a little snack time where we have charcuterie boards or whatever the chef has dreamed up. We've got some amazing chefs that put out literally, I think it's one of the 2 things people will comment about is the experience that they've had on the bears, and the food is just top notch. Yeah, for those that have had some amazingly close encounters with animals, then you know what it's like. I won't have to go any further because you know what that experience is. It's incredible when you are naturally close to an animal and you feel the presence, you feel them look at you in the eye, and you're looking back. That intimate relationship happens. And we've had it with polar bears. We've had it with narwhal. I've had people that are looking down a narwhal and they get that eye-to-eye contact. So it is a unique experience. It's something that there's very few opportunities for that. And to do that with an apex predator such as a polar bear is incredibly unique. It's like the gorillas of Africa and stuff. Those iconic experiences are very few, and this is one of them.
Being up close to majestic creatures is quite an amazing feeling.
It's not just the polar bears either. So you see the polar bears and then you see the changing landscape. It's the Serengeti of the North. That's exactly what it is.
Welcome back, everyone. And I hope you enjoyed our little bit of a pre-roll there that we had with respect to having Dave do some really good intro work on that. Now I'm going to ask Graham and David, as well as Dave, to turn on their cameras and turn on their audio. We're going to go through a few more little things here. You're going to get to meet the guys here. So that's on your screen in the middle now. You'll see Dave there. You'll see Dave Lambert, and Graham's going to join us as well. So if everyone can give a wave there. And then we're going to go through a few more slides here. Just going to share some information for you with respect to some details. And David's going to speak to a little bit. Graham's going to speak to a little bit. And then we'll have our Q&A session. So just give me a second here. I'm going to reshare my screen. And there we go. Share. And it should be up there, so I'm going to maximize it. So a little bit about the itinerary. David Lambert, maybe if you can take over and share with us a little bit about that. And David was just up there recently too, so it's firsthand information.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. So we have the confirmed dates for this fall season. So I'll be able to share all of those with you one-on-one. But just as a general overview of the itinerary, the starting point will be in Winnipeg. So you'll fly into Winnipeg. Generally, the recommendation is to arrive at least before 6 p.m. Before the first day of the tour, just so that if there's any kind of delay, you don't get affected for the flight out, which typically takes place in the morning of day two. Also, if you want to explore a bit of Winnipeg, as much as some of you are going to be flying from very far distances to attend, then it's not uncommon for guests to spend a few days prior to the tour starting in Winnipeg to explore. So once you get to Winnipeg, as I mentioned, the next day, we generally fly out to Churchill in the morning. And then if the weather is good and will allow, then we'll transfer into a small bush plane that will take you up to the polar bear cabins. And this is very much a cool part of the experience. If you've never been in a small bush plane, it's very different to flying commercial. And it flies low enough that you can very easily look out the window and spot wildlife as you fly above. And it's about a 1 hour flight. So it's fun to just peer out and see how many different signs of life you can spot and just admire the tundra. Last year, I was able actually to spot a big herd of caribou, which was a surprise and a treat. So make sure to take full advantage of the opportunity and enjoy the flight. And then once we get to the cabins, we're going to be there for 4 days, and Dave has already walked you through what that experience looks like. It will very much depend on the weather and what the conditions are like each day. If there's a blizzard or if the conditions are very favorable and comfortable. So even though the itinerary may on paper look the same every day, the actual experience may vary differently based on what wildlife is there and just the group dynamics. And then on the way back, there's a slight difference to the way up. We actually spend a night in Churchill, and so you'll have another opportunity to go out into the tundra, this time below the tree line. And we often do see a lot of wildlife in and around Churchill on that last day too. And then we'll go back to Churchill and you'll make your way back home on day 7. So that's the general overview of what the itinerary looks like, as long as weather and conditions all go accordingly.
Thanks, David. Maybe if you can share people that there's still some availability left for this year, and that we're already taking bookings for next year.
Yeah, as Brad just mentioned, there is still a bit of space in October. Mainly, there are 2 final spaces left in November. For the October 27th to November 3rd departure, I would say there's some chances of snow coverage, and for the snow to stick around. October 18th to 25th is likely or less likely to have snow coverage, but it's Canada, so you can never know for sure what weather to expect. Sometimes winter comes early, sometimes it comes very late. So you kind of have to prepare for both scenarios. And we do provide polar clothing packages if anyone isn't equipped for the winter seasons. So if you do really want higher chances of snow coverage, it's best to jump on some of those later departures. But if you're someone who's cold averse, attending in early October is generally going to be a bit more comfortable during the day.
Thanks, Dave. And we have David's contact at the very end to request to look at booking as well as getting quotes for to join the trip this year. The next point that we're going to go into is that this is a very unique trip, and all of our trips can be done as private journeys. And what is a private journey? Well, it's where a group or an individual even can book out an entire group space, and then we can do some very unique things, from as little as bringing in wildlife or marine biologist experts to really enhance the trip, to bring in some unique vehicles or some unique ways of getting around to enhance the experience, like bringing in the use of helicopters so we can actually travel further distances out from where we operate, whether it be at the polar bear cabins or on some of our other safaris, so that it actually can enhance the experience to see more wildlife and more of the Arctic as well. And maybe Graham, if you want to make a few little comments on that, please feel free to add to it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brad. Dave and Dave. Private journeys are whatever you want them to be. We can customize the group size to accommodate slightly larger groups or slightly smaller. Can have more young people or elderly or anyone with special needs, and can also, as the term journey insinuates or connotates, can be a journey to one or more places. So we've talked about how typically Winnipeg and Churchill make up part of this itinerary, but we're also thrilled to offer Blatchford Lake Lodge, one of the world's top locations for Northern Lights, located about half an hour flight east of Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. And this is a dark sky, totally remote lodge that offers the very best of Northern Lights and the ability to connect either directly to the polar bear cabins or to go between Yellowknife and Churchill for groups. We've also had itineraries continue on to Iqaluit, so you can do NWT in Yellowknife, Churchill, and visit Nunavut's capital as a varied experience. There's also connections onwards now from Iqaluit to Nook, Greenland. So there's really no end to the possibilities, whether going for people on the west side can come through Alaska all the way to Churchill, or if you're coming from Europe, maybe you want to actually come through the north from the east. The bear cabins are above the tree line and roughly halfway between Churchill and Arviat. So they're pretty inaccessible in the sense of visitation or people from either Churchill or Arviat. They're the most northernly fly-in cabins and the only ones located above the tree line from Churchill. And really, we try to offer the best of both worlds, from the combining Nunavut and Manitoba and Churchill. So it's a combination of them both. So whatever your dreams are, whether it's a shorter trip or a longer trip, or popping in, or continuing to build on your knowledge and love for the North, we look forward to putting together whatever combination of needs and locations will best suit you and your family, or if it's a corporate group, maybe any co-workers, associates. Let the inspiration run wild. So
Thanks, Graham. Thanks. That
jump
was
in and welcome you north.
Thanks, Graham. That was awesome. And again, on the contact that we'll have at the very end, you can reach out to David, as well as we have Dan on our team who handles all of our private journeys. So we're more than happy to do custom expeditions and custom safaris and turn them into private journeys for you. Next, we're going to turn it into a Q&A session. I'm going to stop sharing the screen from this area here so we can look at the questions that have come in. I've seen a few hands go up during this session, and we're asking people that if you do have a question, put it in the chat, which is on the lower right section of your screen, and we, the panelists, will see that chat and we'll be able to answer those questions. Maybe Dave, if you can, Dave Briggs, if you can open your camera again. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, great, super. So we have a few questions in here. So it asks, and Graham, you probably answered this one, but maybe Dave, if you can give of an exact location, where are the bear cabins located in relationship to Churchill?
In relation to Churchill, well, it's as we already know, it's about a 50-minute flight north of Churchill, 180 kilometers north, and we're situated right along the coastline of Hudson Bay on the west shores. So you just basically got to follow the coast all the way, and just as you enter into Nunavut, we're about a centimeter beyond that on a map.
Cool. Thanks. I appreciate that. There was another question with respect to, someone believed that all the bears were amassed in Churchill and that they don't go north. And maybe Dave, if you can answer, why do they go north? Why do they leave Churchill, and why do they go north? And I think you commented it on a little bit, but maybe to answer this question, if you can explain it in detail.
Yeah, so I touched on it on the intro, but yeah, so the polar bears, they've learned through thousands of years that if they go up the coast, they've got this history, and they work their way up the coast, and then what they're trying to do is to get into cooler climates, areas where there'll be ice forming, and that they can use that as a lot of people know, that's their platform for feeding. So yeah, the bears are just working their way up the coast. It starts to get colder, and they start to work their way up. We have found that it's quite often you'll get mothers and cubs, the younger ones earlier on in the season, and then and a lot of the younger males and females. And then as the season progresses towards the end, you might get those larger males. And those males will quite often be pushing, the theory is that they're pushing those other animals forward, okay? So they're trying to keep ahead of the bigger males that are coming behind. So that doesn't mean you won't see mother and cubs later in the season. It's just one of those trends that we notice, that we get the younger juveniles and younger ones at the beginning of the season.
Great. Thank you very much. I have a few requests of people wanting to know what the cost is, and we will have David's contact at the very end. It's Adventures at Arctic Kingdom, and you'll see it as the last slide. You'll be able to set up a call with David and get a one-on-one consultation to find out exactly how long you want to go for, because there's some people who elongate the trip and make a pre or post out of it. So depending upon what you're looking for, David can custom tailor what you're looking for. And it leads me to the next question on there. Is someone's coming a long distance from Austria, and it's a long trip. Is there some suggestions that you would have to elongate the trip? And maybe Graham, you spoke a little bit there. Maybe if you over the next take about a minute and answer that question on some of the unique things that someone can add on to a polar bear cabin safari.
Absolutely. I mean, if you start in southern Canada, many flights fly through Montreal or Toronto if you're coming from Europe. So adding time in either of those cities or Ottawa is fantastic. If you have any particular interests in wineries or anything else that's non-Arctic, we're happy to help as well. And then once you get to Winnipeg, I think is an underrated city in how much it actually offers and how many days you can really spend there. So there's some wonderful itineraries and possibilities there before flying north. Churchill as well can be expanded. There's a few ways of doing an extra couple of days, either pre or post. If you wanted to continue to the north, to other parts of the north, there are flights up to Rankin Inlet from Winnipeg, and Rankin is much farther than Churchill. And there's flights both east to or from Iqaluit, which is Nunavut's capital, or west to Yellowknife, and that's Yellowknife's the capital of the Northwest Territories. There's a lot of special things, both on Baffin Island to the east or in the Northwest Territories to the west. So in many regards, there's a northern itinerary sort of crossing the north. But there's also lots of special parts in southern Canada, depending on how much time you have, and we can help with all of that.
Great. Thank you very much, Graham. There are questions with are there accommodations at this on this safari for solo passengers? Maybe David, if you can answer that one, that would be great.
Sure. So there is always an option, as long as there's availability to have your own private cabin. This typically does come at a single supplement. But if you're okay sharing your accommodations, the supplement does not apply. So you aren't penalized for traveling by yourself. In those instances, as much as possible, we will pair same gender travelers. So two female travelers, two male travelers. The only exception being if both travelers are comfortable sharing with members of the opposite sex, and that may be permitted, but we generally try to avoid that as much as possible and keep the same genders together. So yeah, don't worry if you're traveling alone. You are perfectly welcome to share. Or if you want to have that added privacy, then there is an option to buy out a cabin for yourself.
Great. Thanks, David. I'm having a lot of people ask me about David's contact, so I'm going to put it up on the screen. That's going to take over our lovely faces, and I'm just going to put it in full broadcast mode so people can see it there. There was a couple other questions with respect to what is the minimum number of people for a departure to go, and maybe Graham, I'll let you speak to that one with respect to what happens if we don't have a full 8 people on a trip. How does it work?
It's an even smaller departure. So where there's lots of interest, typically there are many different people. There's many people that plan a year or two out, and there's almost as many that are more spontaneous and look for booking things a couple of months out. So we're quite confident that all the trips and departures will fill up, but regardless, they operate, and so it's an even smaller departure if by any chance it doesn't end up being full.
Great, thanks, Graham. There are a few other questions here that I'm going to go through and respond directly to you if you've dropped something in the question. I'm being mindful of time. We did say that this was a 45-minute seminar. It was booked for an hour and potentially some of your calendars. We have 9 minutes left within the time frame. If you need to leave and move on, and you have a question that did not get answered within this, please drop it in the question box. We will get back to everyone who drops questions within there. I know Dave was having a little bit of a technical issue with his mute button. So if there are any questions for Dave, he can jump in and join me on my computer. I know we can still see his screen there, but he's having a little trouble unmuting himself. So if there's any other questions, I'm just going to go through and look at. It says, when doing a private expedition, what dates would be possible? Maybe Graham, I'll put this one back to you.
There's 2 types of private trips, those that we work within the existing schedule. So typically those are booked farther in advance or require a departure be empty to be booked entirely for a group, and the other approach is completely bespoke. And that one, we can plan earlier, later. We have other locations that are possible, similar ones and slightly different. And the whole idea of bespoke and custom itineraries is to find the dates that work for our guests, for the experience, and sometimes for the logistics as well, if private aircraft are involved, or depending on if you're flying from the east or from the west. Are you coming, from the west coast in Seattle, or coming from Australia, or are you flying over the Atlantic? And so what are opportunities that we can build on? So we can suggest private departures within this schedule, but depending on group size, we can also suggest other opportunities that are similar and unique in themselves.
That's great. Thanks, Graham. We seem to be at the end of our questions now. Either we were really good at presenting and answering all the questions, or maybe we've stumped some of you for further questions. But you do have the contact adventures@Arctic Kingdom. These webinars will now be happening on a monthly basis. Part of our vision as a company is to share the wonderment and the beauty of the Arctic with people from around the world. And if you're on this webinar, you'll be automatically invited to our next webinar. We'll be doing one about Blatchford Lodge and the awesomeness of the aurora up there and the experiences that could be had almost year round. And then we'll follow that up with our narwhal and polar bear safari, which is going to what's called the Flow Edge in the following month. So in August, we'll do Blatchford, and then in September, we'll do narwhals and polar bears. So thank you all for your time today. I'd like to thank Graham, David, and Dave for their time and sharing their wonderment of the Arctic with us. And we look forward to you, on our next webinar, but more importantly, coming on one of our safaris.